Number 10. What if Jane Foster had found the Hammer of Thor? This one isn't so strange for the premise, but it's more bizarre because of where the premise took us in the end. This is a story we've also seen adapted to the main continuity, though fortunately it does not quite share this same ending, which I'm pretty happy about, to be honest. Jane ends up finding the Hammer of Thor and becoming the goddess of storms, taking up the mantle Thordis. Lady Sif, missing Thor, ends up finding and falling in love with Donald Blake, who is later revealed, of course, to be the true Thor when Odin asks Thordis to return his hammer to him. As thanks for her service, however, Odin makes Jane a goddess. However, as Jane was in love with Donald, who is now Thor and is in love with Lady Sif, her heart is broken, and she has to be returned to her mortal self because of this. But Odin has a better solution and proposes to Jane, who agrees, to marry him, and then they all live happily ever after. With Jane finding that those very qualities she both admired and loved in the mortal Don Blake are also to be found in the father of immortal Thor. My goodness. That's a very strange ending to that story. How about instead of being with my son, you be with me, his father, haha. Okay, Odin, what? I feel like I like it better when Odin just doesn't really like Jane. I think that works more. Is that weird? Number 9. What if the Avengers were the last superheroes on Earth? This story allows us to imagine what the world would be like if all the superpowered beings on Earth were defeated by the Avengers. At the behest of the Scarlet Centurion, the Avengers attempt to eradicate all superpowered beings, including themselves. In the end, after all threats have been defeated, they decide to disband, being the last ones with powers, in order to usher in an era of peace on Earth. They all go off to live their own normal-ish lives. Thor returns to Asgard, Tony returns to being a billionaire playboy in Las Vegas, only to realize that it doesn't really bring him any joy and actually considers entering into politics. And Janet Van Dyne and Hank Pym actually seem to find quite a bit of happiness, going off and getting married and focusing on their time with one another, which is kind of sweet. I guess if they weren't superheroes it would work out pretty well for them. Scarlet Centurion does return to threaten Earth and forces the Avengers to come together one more time, but after defeating him, they once again go their separate ways back into retirement. And they also kind of question, like, if being a superhero is actually a bad thing, because does it create more problems than it solves? Just a quick reminder, if you love these what if lists, I personally love bringing them to you because these stories are amazing. Be sure to show us that love by giving this video a thumbs up, sharing, commenting, subscribing, all the things. Number 8. What if the Gamma Bomb spawned 1,000 Hulks? This story comes to us from volume 2 of the What If series that started back in 1989. In issue 71, we get to imagine a reality where instead of just one Hulk, or the members of the Hulk family plus Hulk, we had 1,000 of them, which I would say is ultimately too many Hulks. In this story, it was the bombing on Hiroshima that resulted in these thousands of Hulks coming into existence, survivors of the attack that were basically mutated, so they became Hulks. In the end, Bruce Banner, aka Hulk, who of course goes on to become the Hulk in the story, must attempt to stand up against this army and attempt to defeat it with the help of some friends. Number 7. What if Betty Brant, instead of Spider-Man, had been bitten by the radioactive spider? This one comes to us from a 3-part story and is simply one story within that. It is from the original What If series volume 1 from 1997, issue number 7. Here, Betty Brant, instead of Peter Parker, is the one bitten by the radioactive spider, gaining spider-like abilities. While the story isn't a strange premise at all, like I don't think it's weird for Betty Brant to become, a version of Spider-Man. What really makes this one stand out for me in terms of its weirdness is Betty's costume here, which is it's something. It's also odd that in this alternate reality, Betty happens to be the only alternate person to become Spider-Man that manages to survive the ordeal, with both John Jameson and Flash Thompson in this issue, who are featured in the other 2 stories, dying as a result of gaining spider powers and attempting to use them. Instead of Betty choosing not to pursue the thief that kills Peter's Uncle Ben, she simply is unable to because she used up all her web fluid posing for pictures for Peter. Which is a whole other thing, but also, wait, can't you just go after them anyways? Don't you have superpowers? It doesn't matter that your web fluid is gone. Anyways, she still blames herself for Uncle Ben's death and decides to quit being Spider Lady, which I think is a little harsh. I feel like she wasn't really super responsible for that, but I guess she could have gone after him. I don't know why she didn't do that. Be like, use your super strength, climb on walls, do any of the other things you can do. Number 6. What if Submariner never regained his memories? This story allows us to glimpse into an alternate reality where Namor never met the Human Torch and never ended up regaining his memories and returning to Atlantis, learning that he was the true ruler of the underwater kingdom. Instead, the Submariner remains unaware of his true heritage and ends up joining a ship's crew, finding himself inexplicably drawn to the sea. I wonder why. The captain of the ship, Namor's friend McCandless, ends up being mutineered against and goes overboard while injured when he believes they found the lost entrance to the center of the earth. Namor, or Mr. Smith as he's known, follows after him and ends up being retrieved from the ice-cold water by Inuits later on. They end up worshipping Namor as the Lord of the Frozen Sea, along with frozen Captain America, who they worship as the Lord of the Frozen Ice. And Namor's like, I guess this is my life now, and I'm pretty good with it. So I guess it all worked out in the end, and now he just gets to be the Lord of the Sea really far up north where it's cold. Cool, I guess? Number 5. What if Iron Man was trapped in the time of King Arthur? While all of these stories are based on things that actually did happen, this is also based on something that did happen, so if you think it sounds weird because it's just so random, that is a thing that actually happened, where Iron Man and Doctor Doom in main continuity traveled back to the time of Arthurian legend. However, rather than getting back home in this version while Doom manages to leave, he leaves Iron Man trapped in the past. Oh no! A weird turn of events ends up leaving Tony Stark as the ruler and king of England following the death of his friend King Arthur. Tony actually proves to be a great king and lives out his days there in the past just as an accomplished and celebrated ruler. I actually wonder what effect that would have had on the present, because I feel like everything would be very different if Tony Stark were the king of England. This all goes down in issue 33 of the 1997 What If series, so you can check that out if you want. Number 4. What if the Fantastic Four had different superpowers? One of them is just being a giant brain. It's true. Actually, overall, these powers feel very Doom Patrol meets X-Men in my opinion. In this alternate story, when subjected to cosmic radiation, the FF get completely different powers than what each member has in main continuity. Johnny becomes a robot, Ben gets dragon-like wings, Reed is just a disembodied brain, admittedly not a very great power, and Sue ends up with the least original powers, getting Reed's old powers instead, the ability to stretch her body like Taffy or Silly Putty. Really, I feel like Sue always gets sort of like the worst part of these stories whenever she's in a What If. Hers are always so like quick or just so kinda lame, and I'm like, dang, why does an invisible woman get some cool stuff? I think she was still Invisible Girl at this time though, maybe that's why. Number 3. What if Aunt May instead of her nephew Peter had been bitten by that radioactive spider? This story reimagines what would have happened if once again it was not Peter Parker who received the fateful radioactive spider bite, but instead was his elderly Aunt May. This is from a humor issue, so you know it's gonna be weird and you know it's gonna be great. And it is. Aunt May here ends up getting bit after realizing that Peter had left his lunch at home on the day he and his class were meant to visit the exhibit at the Science Institute. And if you're like, Amanda, it's not called the Science Institute. Seriously, if you go to this issue, that is what is written on the building in the Science Institute. Of what? We don't know. She successfully delivers the forgotten lunch to Peter, cottage cheese and mashed string beans, but ends up feeling unwell on her way home, and finds that she has developed superpowers. She makes her own costume, becoming Spider-Man, and ends up facing off in this story with the ridiculous villain, Leapfrog. Because that's just how it goes. Number 2. What if the Fantastic Four all had the stretching powers of Mr. Fantastic? Oh boy, I love this issue because we get 4 stories where we get to imagine what it would be like if multiple members of the FF shared basically the same powers. And in the one where they all get stretching powers, they just never end up becoming the Fantastic Four because their collective power is just considered, well, kinda lame. Sue in fact insists that they never let anyone know of their powers because she feels like, and I quote, a freak. Both Sue and Ben feel as though the stretching powers are ridiculous, monstrous, ugly, and dumb, while Reed and Johnny actually think they're pretty neat and even could be useful. Still, Sue and Ben's way of thinking wins out, so the Fantastic Four never become a superhero team. The end. Number 1. What if Thanos had changed Galactus into a human being? I really love this What If story personally. It comes to us from, once again, one of the humor issues of What If, so you know it's gonna be a riot. In this story, Thanos turns Galactus into a human being in order to defeat him, and Galactus ends up on Earth with no memory of who he was or is. He does, however, happen to look a lot like Elvis Presley, and even sings and plays like him too. He meets a woman named Gertrude who introduces him to the works of Presley, and Galactus is basically convinced that he must indeed be like an amnesiac version of Elvis Presley, returned from the dead. He goes on to have a successful music career, and when his memories are later restored by Adam Warlock, who also offers to return his power to him, he actually decides instead to stay on Earth and live out his life here as Elvis with Gertrude and her son Toby. Which, I mean, fair enough, that sounds like a pretty good life.
Kicking off the list at number 10. Beast Boy and Raven. Okay, they say opposites attract, so when you put together an immature shape-shifting prankster with a half-demon sorceress, things are bound to get a little weird at some point. Fans weren't really sure why the two had it out for each other, being so different and all. See, everybody didn't really expect them to last. Even during their time together, readers found it just not that thrilling. The chemistry was just, dare I say, bland, or not as big as some other relationships. Like in the early 2000s cartoon, she's annoyed by Beast Boy. She doesn't like how he's immature and how he does pranks and how he doesn't use his indoor voice ever, and she found his comedy to be annoying. And then in season 4 of Teen Titans Go, episode 12, it shows Beast Boy writing a song to tell Raven how he feels about her. And then in episode 13, Beast Boy tours with the song, but it annoys Raven. So he's playing his heart out, and she's like, I don't know, not really. And before we continue on with this list, guys, if you haven't already, please go ahead down below and give us a thumbs up, because it really does help the channel out a lot and it makes us feel good in our tummies. So please go ahead and do that if you haven't already. Thank you so much, and back to the list. Number 9. Jinx and Kid Flash. The Teen Titans show from the early 2000s, we saw Cyborg and Jinx flirting a lot while they were fighting. It was good, it was a nice little dynamic, keeping it real. They were fan favorites, and she was this villainous teenage sorceress who hit enemies with bad luck. And then in the episode Lightspeed, which aired in the final season, we see the introduction of Kid Flash. And in the same episode, this romance between him and Jinx was born, in the same episode. Which in turn resulted in her switching over to the good side, which is great, I mean yay, go team. Like that's a great win, but in one episode, with all that groundwork with Cyborg just kind of washed away, viewers weren't too pleased at the choices. Number 8. Aqua Girl and Static. Guess you can say there wasn't a lot of friction with this one. Static. Okay, yeah, you're right. Guys, love is all about timing. Maybe you bump into somebody at a coffee shop, maybe you hit it off then, and then Bob's your uncle. Or maybe you meet somebody when you're captured by the Terror Titans and you're forced to fight as gladiators in the Dark Side Club. Whatever your origin story is, I hope the love works out. Well, that's just the case for Static and Aqua Girl. See, when she got back to Titan's Tower, she decided to rejoin as a member with no other options really at that point. And she was getting along with these heroes as well, specifically Blue Beetle and Static. Like she flirted a bit with Blue Beetle, but with Static, he was also a victim from the Dark Side Club, and they had a lot more in common because they're both kind of going through that together. You go through shit together, you get close. That's how it goes. He was also a victim from the Dark Side Club, and she convinced him to stay with the Teen Titans afterwards. So they had some history there, be it good or bad. So she convinced him to stay with the Teen Titans, although he had a family that was worried sick about him, and they were missing for like months, right? And the issue that fans recognized with this whole fling is that Aqua Girl was a flirt with the entire team, and it just didn't make sense for them both to share any affection with each other at this point. Number 7, Raven and Kid Flash. Raven needed help from the Teen Titans, but when she went looking for it, the team was not together at the time. So she enlisted the help of Kid Flash, whom she had a relationship with, and they were both able to convince the Teen Titans to get back together. Sounds like the perfect couple. Sounds like they're working it out awesome. I mean, being able to put together a team of supers, like that's hashtag couple goals right there. Only the thing was, they weren't really in love. Yeah. See, later it was revealed that Kid Flash's feelings were all part of the spell that Raven used on him. She manipulated his feelings, so of course, after that point, it's safe to say the trust between the two was a little bit jaded, a little bit weak. Number 6, Nightwing and Mirage. Miriam Delgado, aka Mirage, comes from the future. And in that future, she's together with Nightwing, who ends up not actually being Nightwing. So Mirage, Redwing, and others joined their forces and became the Team Titans. And the only way to defeat Lord Chaos was to travel back in time and take out his mother. The classic time heist go-to scenario. So they went back 10 years, but they ended up in a different timeline. Also, that's how time works. Never works. Classic time thing. Hey, you wanted this? Nope, now you're in the 50s. So they still went ahead with their plan anyways, and then Mirage thought it would be a smart idea to impersonate Starfire and try and get with the leader of the new Titans, Nightwing. See, that plan didn't work after all, but they ended up joining forces to take out Lord Chaos anyways. So Starfire during this time, of course, lost a lot of trust from Mirage. So she hooked up with who she thought was her future man, and Dick didn't even notice during this crazy night that it wasn't her. It's just, this is definitely one for the books. Number 5, Nightwing and Raven. Nightwing and Starfire were together for a while. They were members of the team, they got along, and they're probably one of the better couples. If we did a list about top 10 better couples, they would for sure be in that list. So they were about to get married. They were so close. They were literally right there at the altar when all of a sudden Raven showed up to destroy the wedding, even taking out the priest before he made it official. So Starfire and Dick ended up calling it after some time because Starfire felt like Dick wasn't really in it for the long run. And then Dick was kind of like, you're not wrong. So Raven and Dick were never a couple in the comics. This is an important note. So for her to come out all of a sudden and be attracted to Nightwing was just the writers trying to make Dick seem like a bigger catch at this point. Raven was just getting used to having emotions at this time, being fair, but when it came to keeping it cool around Dick, or rather Nightwing, but when it came down to keeping it cool, acting chill around Nightwing, she just couldn't get a grip, but everything else in her life she could control. She just had to ruin the wedding, eh? I mean, no dancing to shout, no white wine. Number 4, Kid Flash and Solstice. When Bart was captured and forced to serve a life of labor on a distant and lonely planet, Solstice, who at the time was in love with him, just head over heels, took out an agent of the functionary just so she could serve the same punishment and be with him. I remember one time in high school, I said I was part of this group that was slacking off. I got in trouble just so I could go to detention with them, or else I'd eat alone, you know? Ride or die, let's do it. So I get it, but I mean, these stakes were just, a tad higher. So Bart, Kieran, and Superboy decide to remain in the 30th century, and Bart and Solstice were trapped on the planet Takaran Galtos, forced to kill and survive. All the while, love just flows in the air between them. Number 3, Robin and Wonder Girl. This next one is absolutely insane. Okay, it's so gross as well. So after the death of Superboy in Infinite Crisis, Robin's plan was to try and replace him with a clone using Superboy's corpse. Now, of course, that was way easier said than done, and this failed over and over and over again. So Wonder Girl waltzes in and then sees Robin frustrated at these failures, and he starts to destroy all of these attempts of a clone. Then they both bonded over how upset they were at the loss of Superboy, and with all the remains of all these clones just strewn about, just squishing under their feet, they shared a kiss while a tear was coming down their face. Beautiful moment, definitely a beautiful moment to be like, hey, we're gonna get through this, like I miss him too. But like, you're standing on his spleen. You're standing on like 7 of his spleens, all these clones. I'd be like, hey, can we mop first? Like this is gross. I'm hearing squishy squishes while I'm trying to hug you. Can we please get a janitor? I mean, bonding over a death, sure, that's normal, but bonding over the death of somebody that's spilt around you, no way, we can't overlook that. Number 2, Beast Boy and Terra. She pops up in the 2nd season episode titled Terra, of course, when she's running away from a giant scorpion, which sounds like all my nightmares, sounds terrifying. Massive scorpions, no thank you. So the Titans, of course, come to the rescue, but help is not something she needed, really. Yeah, she was actually leading the scorpion into a trap where she would then use her powers to cause this stone bridge to collapse and take out this giant arachnid. And then when she introduces herself to the team, Beast Boy gets shy. He turns into a shy boy. He turns himself into a little turtle, which is something I try and do often. I'm like, oh, we got company. Back into my shell. This neck goes all the way into this hoodies when I'm nervous, when I'm a shy boy. And she loves it. She thinks he's hilarious. She thinks he's the cutest guy ever. Fair. So now Terra and Beast Boy are close. Beast Boy convinces Terra to stay with the team and train, but during that conversation by the water, Terra accidentally moves a rock that Beast Boy is sitting on, so now the secret is out. Terra cannot control her powers. The next day when she's being tested by the team on said powers, Beast Boy gives a few words of encouragement and she completes it. Perfect, love it. This sounds great so far, Taylor. What are you getting at? Does it get worse? This is number 2 for a reason. Then they receive a signal that Slade Wilson has returned and they track his location. So Beast Boy invites Terra. Terra's like, yeah, I'm ready to go. Clearly I passed this test, let's do it. So Terra ends up cornering Slade, and then Slade explains how the team will get rid of her once they realize she can't fully control her powers. He's playing the mind game, okay? But his whole pitch here is that he can surely help with that aspect. He can help her control the powers. So she tells him to hit the road, and then she becomes a full member. Now, during a rendezvous with Beast Boy, the couple cross paths with Slade again, and then Slade reveals that Terra had been a spy the whole time. And to make matters even worse, somehow, in the Judas Contract storyline in the comics, one of the main reasons behind this betrayal was that she, at 15, and Deathstroke were in love. Let's go a little bit higher. Maybe like a lot higher, Deathstroke. I don't know. I mean, age is just a number. Sometimes that number is 15, and sometimes these storylines are pretty. And finally, number 1, Donna Troy and Terry Long. Of course, for number 1, we have to end on the worst couple of all time. So Donna married Terry Long, who was a college professor at the time, and he was in his 30s and was previously divorced. And Donna, again, age is just a number. She was 19 years old and in his class. Yeah, she was his student. He was the teacher. So, oof. So Terry was working a few jobs just to make ends meet, but he wasn't a great boyfriend while they were dating by any means. He hit on her friends numerous times and he used her to get some clout. They were married with a kid until a car crash was just written into the story, taking out Terry and his son, who would go on to become Lord Chaos. So yeah, get rid of a lot of that stuff. Let's just get rid of a lot of that stuff. Fans were not happy with this element of the story, and it's totally justified. And also, bonus points for him hitting on Starfire, and then Starfire also had a crush on him back while this was happening. It was just a mess. I feel like I was watching The Bachelor in Paradise. Just ugh. Well guys, there you have it. Drop us a comment down below which of these romances are weird or not weird to you. Let us know your thoughts. I don't know, I think making out in a pile of your best friend's guts is a little bit odd, I'll say, to say the least. Kicking off the list at number 10, the death of Anthony Stark. Yeah, the front page looks like that. Now imagine if that was the poster for Endgame. Oh God, so many tears. So many more tears, rather. Heyo. This issue is wild. It shows all these superheroes mourning the loss of their friend and fellow Avenger. Even Dr. Doom's mourning. He does like a toast. He's a villain. What's going on? He's like, yes, let us drink now to the memory of a worthy opponent. And to make things even crazier, he writes a note to Rhodey that says, this key card will give you full access to the entire complex. Take this CD to my office, play it on the AV system, boom. The guy's carrying around super suits in briefcases, but he gives Rhodey a compact disc. Gotta love the time. So he puts it in and clicks play, and it's so sad. It shows Stark explaining that somebody has to continue after him. And then bam, you see a suit made just for Rhodey. What a moment. Tony continues to say that Iron Man was the greatest thing he's ever invented, and he doesn't want it to die with him. What a message. So moving. I'm touched, personally. It's overwhelming for Rhodey. I mean, of course, all this newfound responsibility of being Iron Man, plus, mourning your best friend. Ayo, that's a tough one. What a week. So finally, he suits up, and it's so badass. Tony Stark may be dead, but Iron Man lives again. So lovely. And the best part, turns out Tony wasn't actually dead at all. Rather just under cryogenic stasis until a scientist sorted out his back problems. Yeah, psych, gotcha, made you look. And before we go on to number 9, guys, if you could please go ahead and toss us a thumbs up for this video because it helps us out here quite a bit. You guys are the best. All right, now back to zombie Tony Stark. Number 9, zombie time. Marvel's zombie is amazing. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting and terrifying, but amazing nonetheless. So Marvel Zombies is a 5-part series written by Robert Kirkman, and it doesn't hold back. I mean, right off the hop, we see Spider-Man with his leg just like messed up. He's like eating people. It's gross. It's kind of like these heroes in a way you don't want to see them, but you kind of do want to see them. It's gross, I don't know. And then we also see Captain America with the top of his head just sliced off, just boop, gone. Everybody's like, hey, Cap, your brains are hanging out of your head. And then he grabs some brain tissue and says, nope, not all of them. And then in comes Tony Stark. He goes detective mode, right? He's like, whoa. So you're telling me there's no Magneto left? He just burned away? Banner is only Banner after he eats, and Spider-Man's all emotional, like he just had some yum-yums. You didn't save any for me. Interesting. It's a really wild way to see Tony's leadership, especially considering the context. He's like, give me your face now, I want to eat it. Pew!
I'm sure the Green Goblin can afford some more bacon.
Dude, this supposed to last us till we get rescued.
Number 8, Iron Man and Titanium Man. All the metals, all the men, bam, explosions. In Tales of Suspense issue 69, we see another metal guy. This time, he's green. Like that, it's green. You can't see, but it's green. There we are, now it's green. Titanium Man, how exciting. They make this big event, right, to watch the two smash heads. It's like a UFC fight, but with monologues and narrating every single fight move you're gonna make. If you skip this issue, that's fine, you're not missing out. There's a guy in a suit who thinks he's better, and he's actually slower and way more stupid. Yep, there it is. He wants all the eyes and ears on him, of course, he likes attention, but when it comes to brass tacks, you don't stand a chance, Boris Bulsky. More like Boris Bulsh. Number 7, Superior Iron Man. This is a fun one, but still a little out of character from the Tony that most of us know. So the issue itself starts off pretty neat, okay? It kind of mirrors the tech that he has in his latest films. He can control his suit, fly in it, fly around, high-five babies, all that cool stuff, all while laying in a pool sipping on drinks. Yeah, his new Extremis armor was fascinating. So much so that Tony released it as a smartphone app. Yeah, imagine having that at the bottom. You got messages, Instagram, some Extremis, and then Angry Birds too. You know, all the essentials, for sure. So this app allowed people to change their bodies using this virus, becoming however they wanted. What a dream come true. And then Tony does the ultimate move and says the app is actually just a free trial. Yeah, if you want to continue it, you gotta pay $100 a day. Honestly, it's not bad. I mean, dudes are out here buying PlayStation 5s for like $3 grand. That's not a bad price for some Tony tech. I'll just get my buddy Matt from grade 10 to jailbreak my phone again, just like the old days. We're good. Number 6, Demon in a Bottle. Now sure, Tony's struggling with addictions isn't weird per se, but it is a plot device that we're not gonna see in future MCU movies. I mean, we saw a little glimpse of it in Iron Man 2, but not too much, of course, because kids are like, why is he dying? Why is he drinking things? What's going on? So this character arc begins in Iron Man issue 120, and it lasts about 9 issues. At first we see Tony and he's just slamming drinks like it's prom night, all right? The opening shot, we see like 3 mini bottles of gin, and then Tony orders more. So the flight attendant's like, hey, how about a magazine to read? And Tony's like, hey, how about another martini? And she even tries to cut him off, but he insists that he's drinking for 2. The other, of course, being his Iron Man persona. Always a healthy sign. Oh, me, I'm drinking for myself and also this H&M sweater, so I need 2, thank you. What happens when you have a superhero who loves slamming martinis? Well, you get Tony Stark flying through the air, drunk, spreading toxic fumes all over a crowd. He's kind of like Hancock in a way, just dangerous. Funny, but dangerous. The alcohol addiction was of course put to the side with the MCU story, thank God. That would take us out of the movie, I think, just a little bit. Like if Tony snapped his fingers and then like a bottle of gin appeared and he's like, perfect. Number 5, Ultimates 3. So since Iron Man 2, we're talking about it a little bit, we saw the relationship between Black Widow and Tony get stronger, and they get really close, but not Ultimates 3 close, heh. So the 2008 5-parter opens up with this shot. All the Ultimates just hanging out in Tony's mansion, and then in the background there's a tape playing. This tape being Black Widow and Tony Stark, doing the thing. Check it out. The issue itself is titled Sex, Lies, and DVDs. Not even Blu-ray either, just DVDs. So what's the deal? Why does this exist? Well, in the Ultimates 2, her and Iron Man dated and of course got engaged, but it's all a lie. A sham. She was trying to destroy the Avengers for the fall of the Soviet Union. That is, until she's killed by Hawkeye. So after she's dead, the tape gets released. People are selling DVDs of it on the streets of New York. It's kind of like in Luke Cage where people are selling footage of the incident, but imagine if they were selling that incident. Some of these stories just need to stay in pages, I think. Number 4, the new Iron Man. The Invincible Iron Man issue 21 had a pretty eye-opening front page illustration. It's Tony Stark quitting. The front page even says, no, this is not a nightmare. So he decides that flying around in a super suit just doesn't blend well with the old ticker, right? He's got heart problems going on. So he looks at somebody else to take on the mantle of Iron Man. So who does he go to besides Eddie March, the famous fighter with brain trauma and damage? Awesome. So he suits up and he loves it, of course. I mean, he's adding clips, he's boxing people, he's making it his own, you know? He's just having a good time. And then Crimson Dynamo ruins that and Tony is forced to return to the tin. I'm surprised he didn't ask Mike Tyson. I mean, his name is already Iron Mike Tyson. Number 3, Convention of Fear. If you're watching this video right now or you're part of our over 1 million subscribers, confetti, odds are you ventured around a comic book convention or 2. So in Iron Man issue 72, titled Convention of Fear, it shows our man in a can getting the job done and taking out low-level villains like Manbull, Whiplash, the Melter, all in the home of a comic convention. And of course the battle comes to an awesome end with fans hailing Iron Man, like real fans too, at this convention. I mean, New York is a pretty common battle place, but a fan convention, I don't know, might be a little bit too meta. Number 2, Iron Man Otar. I mean, it doesn't get much weirder than this. We got Tony Stark squaring up against a Minotaur, and the other plot going on is this weird love triangle with Jasper Sitwell and then Whitney Frost. So the whole time you're kind of raising an eyebrow. The issue as a whole is odd. He doesn't even do well against the Minotaur. Like, this dude struggles to fight the Minotaur. Then in the last second, Miklos the Minotaur has a change of heart and helps Iron Man save Whitney. Ah, it's great, super thrilling. We love happy endings, I guess. We love to see characters lose control and then immediately gain control only moments later. That's my secret, Cap. I'm always a Minotaur in control.
Sorry boys, momentary loss of motor nerve.
And finally, number 1. Trapped by the Red Barbarian. Remember that part in Winter Soldier where Natasha Romanoff has that amazing face-changing technology that for sure could have come in handy for literally any other movie? Well, in Tales of Suspense issue 42, we see a drawn-out version of that idea with the actor. The actor is an interesting lad. He can resemble almost anybody, and in his words, he says, with the aid of a little makeup. Ah yes, changing your entire appearance? Haha, just dab some eyeshadow on. That should do it, says the actor. So the actor steals some tech from Stark because, well, of course he does. And then Tony makes the Red Army believe that he's the actor because they look the same, and then he steals it back. Then the real actor gets killed because they don't believe that the real actor is... Does your brain hurt? My brain kind of hurts.